All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome back. So we're going to change subjects, change the energy just a little bit for us. And so again, any questions, you can always raise your hand or interrupt if you need to. And so now we're going to work with Neptune in Aries. And first of all, let's get this little slideshow working. There we go. And so the first few slides are repeats just to give you your dates. As you can see with Neptune in Aries, we're looking at 2025 through 2039. And of course, now we're going to start getting into, excuse me, some of the aspects that are going to be happening between the planets as well. One more time, there are two types of astrological timing in evolutionary astrology: non-cataclysmic, slow uniform, and cataclysmic, which tends to be intense change. And both types of evolution, involution, exhibit evolving forces overcoming resisting forces. And it's because most of us want to be secure. We like our routines, we like feeling safe, and yet the only thing that is guaranteed in the world is evolution. And of course, again, also in the world of evolutionary astrology, we look at a planet and its sign and house rulership as being one archetype. You'll learn the 12 archetypes and you can extrapolate them into planets, signs, and houses however you need to. And so here we are, Neptune in Aries. By the way, the photos that you see on your screen here, these are NASA photos from NASA's acronym for our governmental space organization here in the United States. It's their beautiful website because you can go there and get all kinds of photos of the planets that are very nice to look at.
Kim?
Yes.
I'm sorry if I can interrupt. Could you please do a full screen for us?
Full screen. Oh.
You can't see the slides that she's talking to.
Yeah, we can
Okay.
see the
Oh, got it. Okay, let me go back. Hold on a second. Let me go back. Oh, it paused on its own. So, hold on just a second. Okay.
Wonderful.
Okay. Can you see it now?
Thank you.
All right. Okay. All right. Thank you very much. I will remember that when we start after lunch. So here's the first slide. And of course, here's your dates for you. These slides are repeats. And of course, the aspects that we're going to start getting into as well. And then the evolutional timing and of course, the planet sign house 1 archetype. There's the photo of Neptune from NASA. That again, go there and you get great photos, and especially of the the little satellites or whatever they send out into space that goes through our solar system that brings back the Hubble Space Telescope, James Webb. I think those are the two here in the United States. Absolutely gorgeous pictures of constellations that are coming back that are just free off of this website. They work great to put on your own astrology websites if you want to. And so Neptune in Aries starts a brand new 165-year zodiacal cycle in 2025. So of course, religious and spiritual upheavals are initiated. Religious dogmas are going to reap the distortions of their own makings as the veil is lifted, the Neptunian veil, as we call it. Intensifying climate change events can create confusion and clashes as our human species has to figure out how we are going to survive together. And of course, any new search to make sense of our existence on the planet now starts to gain momentum. And so here are your dates of Neptune in Aries for you. As you can see, most of the outer planets, they dip into the sign, they have a retrograde back to the previous one, go forward, and they do that when they're ending a transit as well. Now, the difference for Neptune from Pluto is that its 165-year cycle is pretty conventional. It is approximately 14-year transits in each sign of the zodiac. It's pretty steady Eddie. Just like Pluto going through a sign will create generations on a soul basis, Neptune creates its own mini generations every 14 years as well. And those mini generations are going to relate more to our spiritual, religious spiritual, I should probably say, karma, dharma, that we are all involved in individually as souls and collectively as groups. And so you can use kind of almost the same mechanism as we go through these Neptunian in Aries archetypes. Whatever sign you were born into, that's your generational lessons. Wherever Neptune is in your chart, but individual houses, those are your own individual lessons with the Neptunian process, which in essence is the process to know source energy. And I'll work with you a little bit on explaining that. So as we said, it is the initiation of a 165-year cycle in religious and spiritual evolution. And what we have happened between Pisces and Neptune is that there is a defending of old belief systems that is going to clash with the instinct to evolve into new belief systems or new methods of finding value and meaning in life on the deepest levels. Basically, our belief systems fall into two different categories or principles: inclusive versus exclusive. Inclusive principles are giving, sharing, and including. And it is how we humans lived on the planet for tens and hundreds of thousands of years. We survive better together. We also, though, have exclusive principles, which are taking, hoarding, and excluding. And these principles more or less arose through the development of what evolutionary astrology calls patriarchal distortions. Now, from Jeffrey Green's dreams research, he feels that the shift from matriarchal to patriarchal societies, or I say this general, not specific to genders, the shift from more inclusive to exclusive belief systems, and therefore governments and societies and collective groups, that it happened approximately 6500 BC. It was a gradual shift over, 1,000 years or so, but we eventually, again, for whatever reasons, put it into the Big Bang 14 billion years ago when the unmanifest manifested. The first law that came into manifestation was the law of evolution and the duality between separating and returning forces that all of our souls have. And so from the world of evolutionary astrology, Neptune Pisces in the 12th house is a composite of all 11 archetypes that came before it. It's why this archetype can appear so confusing, because it contains all others before it. Contrast that with Aries, which is me. Neptune is everything. And so it is, in essence, describing the totality of existence and reality here on planet Earth, and even expanded into other planes of existence. And so we have this basics of these two belief systems, inclusive versus exclusive. Most of your religions and belief systems can be a mixture of both including and excluding. Rarely do you see the isolation of the extremes, because the extremes of excluding it's well, I am all alone. We might try that with Neptune and Aries, but I don't know how far we'll get with that. And so another thing that we look at with Neptune being all the archetypes that came before is we will say that Neptune is the totality of consciousness, unconsciousness on the planet. So earlier when Marianne had asked me, what is that individuated unconsciousness? That's what's unique to us, somewhere within our soul that we just can't access like we can with our mercurial left brain and you know, facts and details. But that also exists in totality. There is a collective conscious unconsciousness. That is everything. And it is going to be the closest thing that we have to describing universal source, God, Goddess, Great Spirit, Allah, whatever you want to call it. It is the existence of the divine intelligence, if you want to put it that way, although sometimes we put that word into Uranus. So Neptune is all forms of consciousness. And so Neptune in Aries, every form of consciousness desires to survive and rebirth. And so we have what we will call universal, or excuse me, human conscious unconsciousness, and exists universally. What is unique to all of us as a species, regardless of our race or where we live. We have it on a racial basis. We have it on a national basis. We can break that totality of conscious unconsciousness down into various groups. But we also have it in a non-human form, the mineral, vegetative, animal kingdoms. And it also, from the perspective of evolutionary astrology, is planet Earth or Gaia. If you've ever looked at those pictures of Earth from a distance, and you look at the snow coming and leaving on the poles, it just looks like breath in, breath out. So we here today probably recognize that Earth has its own form of conscious unconsciousness, and it is a living energy. It's a living form of consciousness as well, and it wants to survive. And so Neptune in Aries is going to bring opportunities for us to recognize that all forms of life have a right to exist, survive, and flourish. Before humans, the totality of consciousness on planet Earth, or let's say up until the last 200 years before that, even including humans, all forms of consciousness lived more or less in balance with each other. We had extreme events. We wiped out the dinosaurs. That's part of evolution and wide forms of consciousness. The question is, will we humans destroy ourselves, or will we learn how to figure out how to get along with each other? And so what has happened with our human consciousness is we have created belief systems in which we have conditioned ourselves to somehow believe that there's this perfect God out there, old man, white beard, and cloud. And we can recognize the natural imperfection of us as human beings. And that natural imperfection compared to or contrasted with this perfect God creates what we call conditioned guilt. And there's two responses to this conditioning of guilt. There's the atonement side, in which we are the victim, extremes of masochist. I deserve this. I have to suffer. I must make amends. And if I don't believe I'm worthy of, I just self-sabotage, blah, blah. The other side of responding to this guilt is anger. It is the victor, and in its extremes, the sadist. It is that I have to hurt you first before you hurt me. And so those two together can create those extremes of what we call sadomasochism that we see on planet Earth. And they stem from your organized religions that have been steeped here for at least the last 4,000 years, maybe a little longer. So one of the things that we then have to recognize, and this is the basics of Neptune, Pisces, 12th house polarity, Mercury, Virgo, 6th, is that there's a path to perfection. There's the effort that we have to make. And so one of the most basic things that Neptune is going to teach us is that our spiritualization, Neptune in Aries, is acting upon our beliefs. We can't stand on a pulpit and just espouse it. We have to live it. We have to act it out. We have to process through it. Another little tidbit for you is the whole Garden of Eden myth. Woman is Eve, is flesh, is sin. Adam is man, is a saint, is better than. You see the dichotomy and imbalance and inequality that comes from that. There is a separation of spirit and flesh. Natural spiritual laws and principles teach us that spirit and flesh are two sides of the same coin. In other words, the senses and the spirit are two sides of the same coin. And as I say, you can have all the spiritual wisdom in the world. You can have all the mental intellect in the world. But until you walk through it in a living experience with your emotions and body, it is not learned or integrated. It's reincarnation. It's why we come here again, having these human experiences to learn and then fully expand that consciousness of our own soul, merging soul with universal soul. So these are deep Neptune subjects. And for those of you who didn't catch my chart, I have Sun, Mercury, Neptune, 1 to 2 degrees Scorpio. Yes, I had the lunar eclipse on my stellium. And I am fond of saying, I'm a walking space cadet. Thank goodness Mercury's in there so I can organize PowerPoint slides. But so Neptune has been a subject that I've loved in astrology, and have just found it to be of great comfort in my own confusion, moving beyond religion in my youth. So what are we seeing right now? The choice of no religious affiliation, the nuns, and atheism that may also arise. By the way, we put atheism in the individuated state of consciousness. Sometimes when we're breaking free from those consensus religions, the individuation is saying, nope, 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 there's no divine intelligence, nothing like that. And it's a natural stage of moving through, expanding our awareness of why am I here? But there's no religious affiliation or nuns. It has been rising all the way through the last 12 years of Neptune in Pisces. And it's basically been dissolving old belief systems that, again, have been around for thousands of years that just don't make logical sense in this modern world. So with Neptune in Aries, we've got it between the science of Pluto Aquarius and Uranus in Gemini. And so Neptune's going to be the bridge between all of that science and technology and going, but wait a minute, why am I here? Why am I participating in this mess if we're just going to blow up the world? And so Neptune has a very important job in its transit through Aries. because we do have to expand how we look at things moving forward, and especially through the chaos that's going to come with climate change. So we're going to have the extreme frustrations and angers that will surface all across the planet. My way or the highway, it is my religion. And if you don't agree with that, I'm just going to blow you up. And so we're going to have it on individual levels where, okay, excuse me, I want to live my life how I want to live it. If I want to be trans, if I want to have an abortion, if I want to do this, whatever it is, that's going to clash. That need for freedom, however we perceive it, is going to clash with larger forces of power confining us, limiting us in some way. And so we want to do, be, create, but we also want to balance that with what's it all mean. And those larger forces of power are not just going to be a government saying you can do this, but you can't do that. It's going to be the fact that when, because Neptune is formless, Neptune is consciousness, again, totality of consciousness, unconsciousness, collective level. That consciousness, when it manifests into Saturnian form, we just don't willy-nilly decide to come through, because we can't all be presidents or prime ministers of a country. That consciousness condenses down into a form specific to each of us that relates to our karma dharma and where we're at on our evolutionary path and what it is we're here to learn. And so again, I want that Neptunian freedom, that spark of inspiration, fires coming through. Oh, wait a minute, I don't have the money to do it. Oh, I want to go live on a nice sunny beach for the rest of my life, but I gotta go to my job. So we have, again, that back and forth energy that we're all going to experience. And so it's going to be important that we can learn methods of calming down Neptune and Aries when it starts. We got a couple of years, 1 year, 1.5 years to kind of get a awareness of it, inspiration of it. So when it comes, maybe we can have some of our calming down exercising tools in place. Now, Neptune relates to transcendence. There's more than just what's physically here, no matter what sign of the zodiac it's in, and no matter what house it's in your chart natally. That's just going to describe that Saturnian form and limitation of where you specifically are wanting to transcend and find deep value and meaning in your life, specifically in this lifetime. And so we're all going to be going through this, but Neptune in Aries is really about throwing off old beliefs and being able to spiritualize our world in every area. Jeffrey Green would always say, spiritualization is the path of the householder, not the monastery or convent. So to initiate Aries spiritualization in every area, that means our jobs. That means our housework. That means our gardening chores. My world, that is where I spiritualize. It means everything that we have to do in that mundane Saturnian world. Can we change our concept and our relationship to it? And that's going to be one of the gifts that Neptune and Aries can bring for us. We're all going through the 14-year Neptune and Pisces disillusionment, and it can have us wanting to stick our head in the sand or go, oh, what difference does it make on planet Earth? I'm just one individual. How can I make a difference in the world? You can. And you are very important in making a difference in the world. When Neptune first went into Pisces, I created two mantras, my Sag philosophy here, and they're both question marks. And I probably say this with every client session I have. Neptune, Pisces mantras. What would you have me know, source? Question mark. What would you have me do, source? Question mark. And again, it's asking source directly. What would you have me know? What would you have me do? And it's asking, asking, asking until answers start to arrive directly from source within you, or the book falls off the shelf. And so continue to do that. And you can it's a Neptune mantra. You can do it through any of the signs, but it's really relevant right here in Pisces, especially when we get into that disillusionment and confusion that I'll speak about in just a moment. So all evolutionary states of consciousness, consensus, individuated, spirituated, desire to dissolve whatever prevents merging with source energy. And those barriers can be physical, emotional, mental, spiritual. And so we all desire to merge our individual power with the cosmic whole. And that helps us realize that the ultimate source of power is universal source. And it's not some angry old white man out there judging us and punishing us. It is a co-creative process. And how that co-creative process of merging with source works through Neptune, any sign, and it will be this way with Neptune and Aries, is the need to dissolve those separating desires within our soul. Been there, done that, no longer serves me. Neptune dissolves it. And in that process, it creates what we call the cycle of confusion. We feel alienated, disorientated, depressed. I don't know why I'm doing this. My life just doesn't make sense anymore. Oh, I think I'll just, watch TV and, have 3 glasses of wine, whatever. And so it's natural. Okay. And so what will happen through Neptune and Aries, because I want to do, I want to be, I want to manifest, it's that spark to create. There's going to be a resistance to surrendering, to letting things go that no longer serve us in our life. And so it's represented because Aries fears losing control. I got to do this. I got to do this, and don't take away my ability to do this. And Neptune's going, and if it has to in Aries, Neptune will just blow it away like Pluto and Uranus do if necessary. And so we have to work to consciously recognize what we need to let go of in our life. And then the confusion isn't so strong. And again, we're going to want to cling to whatever has brought us comfort and security up to this point, because it allows us to feel like we're in control. It's pretty scary when we don't feel like we're in charge of our life in every way or most ways. And yet, just reflect on Neptune and Pisces in the areas of your life that you've had to let go of in the last dozen years or so. Neptune and Aries might intensify letting go of things, especially if we didn't in Pisces when we needed to. So just recognize that the confusion cycle of Neptune is natural. What happens when we let go is nothing immediately replaces it. We are left in what's called the void. Doesn't make sense. I don't know why I'm here. Jeffrey Green would give the example of the void of existence. You're in the middle of the ocean. Pick your ocean. You're in the middle of the ocean. You're in a small little rowboat, and it is so foggy you can't see beyond the end of your nose. You have no choice but to go inward and intuitively search for the best way to row your boat to shore. So that cycle of confusion is also to turn us inward. And what it is it's allowing us to have no substitutes for source. It's preventing us from not running back to the past. And then sooner or later, the void lifts, the fog goes away, and all of a sudden everything is rainbow bright again. And we move into what's called the clarity cycle. All of a sudden the intuitive hits come through. Oh, this is what I'm meant to do. Oh, this is what gives me purpose and value and meaning in my life. Oh, Source, you didn't neglect me. Oh, we get 2 sets of footprints in the sand again. And so what that clarity cycle means is we've merged our own ego with our soul. We never are crushing or destroying ego in evolutionary astrology. The moon's in the node and the moon exist. It's about merging ego with soul, and then individual soul with universal soul. And it's a step-by-step process that we do in physical form and non-physical form. The clarity cycle is that sooner or later, poof, everything's magical. And by the way, ego doesn't control the confusion and clarity cycles. Our soul doesn't control the confusion and clarity cycles. It exists beyond our ability to control it. And we have to have that Neptunian acceptance, surrender, and faith. That's where those Neptunian words come from. So these cycles of confusion and clarity, plunging in and out of the abyss, we allow it to happen. Neptune in Aries, I think it's possible those cycles might go a little faster than Neptune in Pisces. Because Neptune in Pisces, boy, we're going to just be in that void of existence for a while. If we understand this cycle with Neptune in Aries, we can move through it a little faster. If not, we'll just see an intensification of these cycles coming along in order to teach us what doesn't work in our world, what is no longer sustainable in our world. That is Neptune. Now, that's not really so confusing, is it? It's just like, instead of, oh, sorry, no disrespect, but instead of babbling off words, when we can understand that that is the ebb and flow of Neptune, it's like, oh, okay. All right, Source, thank you for helping me understand this one. And Neptune in Aries, I'm going to learn how to practice it in the world. And whatever I have to let go of, I'm just going to say this or something better. So, oops, let me go. Click again. There we go. Just a couple of words here. Of course, Aries rules the head in general. It rules our muscles. It rules red blood cells, testosterone in men, progesterone in women. But Neptune rules the immune system in general, and it rules the endocrine system in general. And as Neptune moves through Aries, we're going to have mutations of the immune system. You know, it may have been strengthening with Neptune in Pisces, especially if we've been doing inner spiritual work, but it also could have just been being depleted or bombarded. And so as Neptune moves into Aries, it's going to mutate, and we have to put an effort into strengthening our immune systems and endocrine systems. But we could also see more things happen, you know, with our overfed and undernourished, you know, Western world. And because survival of all species depends upon evolving immune systems to survive, there's a reason the majority of species have two genders. It's because every new generation has an evolution of their immune system versus one gender species just replicating with static immune systems. So Neptune in Aries is really wanting us to work with evolving our immune systems. The blood's going to run hot. How do we calm it down? The B complex vitamins, the, bombardment of viruses and bacteria and fungi is going to increase with climate change. And so in Aries, it's going to be a fight even within our own systems and our own bodies. So tidbit, whatever you can do, strengthening your immune system. And I'm a firm believer in herbology, and you can just Google the internet for immune strengthening herbs and find several that can help you. So one other thing that has to do with the general energy of Aries is that it vacillates between I'm superhuman and I don't know if I can do this. I don't know. And it's that cardinal energy. It's that cardinal modality that operates 2 steps forward, 1 step back. So we move forward with all that spark and energy till we reach insecurity. Then we got to go back a little bit till we feel secure again. And then Aries gets bored, and then we want to go out there. It's secure, got to come back again. And so Neptune in Aries, just understand that it is perfectly natural going forward and back, forward and back. All right. And Aries learns through action. It's action reaction. Neptune can be helpful in giving us foresight, but we've got to do the manifestation of whatever Neptune inspires us with. Can you see how this in general is just going to burst out in all areas on planet Earth? I mean, this wanting to move forward with evolving our beliefs and this whole metaphysical renaissance that I spoke about that might be led by the youth coming forth today. But we're going to want to take that Neptune and Aries inspiration into health and wellness. We're going to want to take it into social support systems and how collective bodies and governments take care of their citizens. You can see how we will put this through all kinds of different areas to inspire us, and including in the whole area of our climate. And how can we inspire the survival of all species? And so let's just take a minute to look back on the last time Neptune was in Aries, that you can see some dates on your screen specifically. But here's a nice visual for you. The last time Neptune was in Aries, the United States had their Civil War, the battle over slavery. You're going to see this, but guess what? In the Civil War, we also had Uranus and Gemini. So for those of you who didn't know this, we are going to move into Neptune and Aries, Uranus and Gemini. We've already had that, and it didn't go so good here in the United States. We had 620,000 deaths back in a time period 165 years ago where we didn't have as many people on the planet at that time. Those deaths from the Civil War in our country were more than every other war we have been in the history of our country. So that is kind of a, I mean, Slavery is a pretty big issue all over the world. Still is in some places. And so there was the need to free a human based upon color of skin. But wow, our distortions and our exclusionary principles really created a pretty inhumane way of doing it. Not every country had to do it as harshly as we did. Lincoln assassinated. You can just see a few things. You gained your independence from Britain. I just put a couple of things in there for you. I thought it was interesting that Alfred Nobel, the Nobel Prizes that we all have, he patented dynamite, Neptune and Aries, the last time we had the Civil War. It's like, oh, that's a little interesting. We also brought about the right to vote and it not being denied by race. That doesn't mean it stopped. Neptune and Aries, that inspiration to manifest. Bell invented the first prototype for the telephone. Thomas Edison invented the phonograph and the light bulb. However, throughout the last Neptune and Aries, all across the world, there were these empires, imperialism and militarism that came up. We're not guaranteed that this won't happen again. And we haven't even gotten out of Neptune and Aries or Pluto and Capricorn. And just look, in 2022, Ukraine and Russia, 23, Israel and Palestine, here we are. Who knows? We could see more and more of this expand. And one of my new mantras for Neptune and Aries is pray for peace. And use the African proverb, when you pray, stomp your feet, which means it's not just in your head, you act on it. So we've all got to rise up and be active. Interestingly, one Neptune and Aries cycle later, here we are working our way through the whole concept in Canada and the United States of what we call in your country reconciliation. We haven't adopted it as much, and it's a pretty harsh little thing. I'm encouraged by my little city of 80,000 versus my state of 900,000 that has done some not so nice things with our conservative governor to our 9 Indian reservations through this whole process of COVID and the ending of Pluto and Capricorn. Stay tuned. We shall see as Neptune moves into Aries again, if we can revisit and forgive and make peace and encourage all of our native species to do whatever they want to do on planet Earth. I lose track of the number. Don't quote me on this. But I love to read. I've been reading National Geographic, and I'm reading this hardcover about all the Native American peoples that were in North America, from Canada, US through Mexico. And I want to say there was something like 1 million indigenous peoples, and they're kind of put them into 5 different groups based upon geography and climate. And I don't even remember how many tribes there were. But that was a lot of people here in North America that we almost wiped out. So I think you get the point of what I'm trying to say here. Let's look at Neptune and Aries moving forward. As you can see on your screen here, 26 again through 38, 39. I went to the bi-wheels with the charts because in Canada and the US, the charts are fairly similar with Taurus risings. We both have that balance between the Pisces energy and the Aries energy for the first time. Neptune goes into Aries March 30th of 2025. What is so interesting about this coming up is many of you are probably aware that Saturn has just went into Pisces for 2.5 years. Well, look at how they're both going to go into Aries, dip back into Pisces, and they're not going to have their conjunction till 2026 at 1 Aries. But look at in 25 when they both go into Aries. They retrograde days apart from each other. And they retrograde they stationary direct very closely for each other as well. So all that Neptune and Aries combustion that we've been talking about, Saturn's going to be right in the picture. And Saturn Capricorn 10th wants the stability, it wants the control, it wants yesterday. And Neptune in Aries is going to bust out. So will we have more imperialism? Will we have more of our socialism? Will we have that include exclude? Stay tuned. We'll find out. Neptune's ingress comes right before a solar eclipse at 9 degrees Aries. And so to me, with all the Pisces Aries energy that we see going on in the ingress chart, and by the way, you probably know this, but astrology in general says that when a planet, especially a long-term planet, ingresses to a new sign, that initial chart, even when it retrogrades back, goes in again, back and forth however many times, that initial ingress into the new sign, that chart carries its own flavor through the rest of that transit. And so for me, I think it's just part of that battle between Piscean surrender, what do we naturally release, or the distortions of the victimization, victorization, versus Aries initiations or Aries, imperialistic uprisings. I think in general that Earth events with climate change will accelerate. Again, Neptune rules nature in all its rawness. Neptune in Aries, you may see more forest fires in your neck of the woods. We see enough on our West Coast, all summer long. Oh yeah, Canada's blowing on us again. Sorry, we're the ones who created it. So in general, our whole world is going to undergo death and rebirth. Pisces, Aries with our belief systems. We've got just the nodal oppositions. We've got a few trines with Mars. We'll see how things turn out, if those sextiles and a couple of trines are enough to ease up the tension. I think sparks are going to fly. So we as a whole and individual countries, we have to choose consciously, Aries. We have to choose to fight or get along. Stay tuned. We shall find out how this is going to go. Now, specifically in the United States, gun control. I mean, you guys have to laugh at us. It's absolutely so ridiculous. It's, excuse me, asinine about our lack of gun control. And now our brand new Speaker of the House that was a mess for the last few weeks because of the Republican infighting of their extremes versus moderates, says that the gun massacres are a heart issue. Oh, the satire going on right now is kind of fun and interesting. But in the USA, is Neptune and Aries going to increase gun violence or bring about sensible gun controls? Here you are, Canada, in your homicide rates. And as you can see, Australia, which made changes, and Japan, which made changes. I mean, in modern worlds, we are ridiculous compared to everybody else. Now, me, I have Neptunian faith that this youth who are rising up, they've lived with massacres their whole life, they're gonna rise up and say enough is enough. We are going to change things. By the way, for those of you who are following our USA presidential election and see Joe Biden and Donald Trump neck and neck in the presidential race, here's a little tidbit of comfort for you. This comes from Celinda Lake, who's a Democratic pollster. From 2016, when Donald Trump was elected, to 2024, next year, in that 8-year time period, 20 million older voters have passed, will pass away. Older people vote more. 32 million new youth have become eligible to vote. And they've already been proving in 2020, 22 that this is an active youth rising up, and they do register to vote and they do vote. So there's a difference of 52 million voters between 2016 and 2024. It gives me a little bit of comfort. And hopefully it's going to get the Democrats in our country to really continue that grassroots, get the vote out and speak to the issues that these youth are really interested in. And our other research and polling shows that the young voters rising up in our country, the US, they are issue politics. They're not party. They're issue politics. Now, there's a danger of third parties for the Democrats, which is how the Republicans will underhandedly try to wipe it out. Stay tuned. We will see how things go and how things turn out. Canada, here is your Neptune return. I will have the specific dates and degrees at the end of the screen for you, just like before. However, as you can see here, you're gonna have a lot of Neptunian hits coming along. Neptune over your Chiron, and then when it goes in, well, it's going to square your moon as well before it leaves. If you can see this on your chart where Neptune is right here, and your moon, and you can see I just briefly said those, but here's the dates of Neptune conjunct Neptune, and then Neptune going over your ascendant. I think you guys are going to have another identity crisis. You've got this imperialist versus socialist, excuse me for putting it into those two words. That is the history of your country. You got a little bit of that include, exclude that we have from our aspects here in the US. Yours can go specifically to this Neptune in Aries on your ascendant. But the other thing of it is Aries, the acceleration of things and the initiation of things, all of your sea level, rising. I think if I remember this one right, and I think I got this one, 40% of the world's population live in coastal areas. 40% of the world lives near water. And as Neptune in Aries, fire sign, heats things up and those water levels rise, you're going to have your own Neptune return crises over how your coastal cities, and you got large bodies of water too, how you are going to address all of that. I think there'll be more of your First Nations reconciliations. I did do a little bit of reading about you guys, and I don't pretend to be an expert, so hopefully I can touch on themes for you. But you know, your Neptune and Aries has went back and forth within your country, the scandal of your own elites and government figures, you know, being more right-wing capitalistic, we want to control, and yet so many masses in your country being more, you know, communal. And you know, it gets cold up here, we've got to take care of everybody. By the way, it's snowing outside where I'm at, and it's below freezing and has been for I think this is the 4th day. And so, you know, you have your own energy back and forth with, again, just your Neptune archetype. Not that it doesn't exist in the Pisces, the moon in Gemini, the sun, Uranus, you know, you can see various areas in your chart where that also exists. I think you're going to have your own collective identity crises, and you're going to go through it throughout this decade, and you're going to go through it through the rest of next decade, because it's not till 31, 32 that you have the Neptune return and it over your ascendant. In other words, my point is, you got an identity crisis before you even get to your Pluto return. And this is going to happen during the time period that Pluto is in a last quarter square to your natal Pluto. By the way, I use porphyry houses. For those of you, I know evolutionary astrology works with any house system. I do like porphyry houses. I do like taking each quadrant and evenly dividing it by 1/3, simple math, as a house system versus complicated Koch and Placidus tables. I think you get my point here, that we got a little bit of identity crisis going on yourselves up in this country. All the best to you. May your inclusionary forces, groups, principles come forth. May we do it for both of us. Climate change. Oh, okay, this is a good one. I'm going to maybe have to speed up here a little bit looking at time. So again, you'll have these slides. Increasing natural earth events is going to change our beliefs about our effect on the planet. It's been happening all the way through Neptune in Pisces. It's going to increase through Neptune in Aries, because in general, all over the planet, Neptune in Aries can warm things up. It can increase fires and increase water levels all over planet. And then we add on the air elements of Pluto, Aquarius, Uranus, Gemini. Just what you wanted to hear, right? I mean, you are a country with a lot more force than we even have. And so it can lead to countries and continents having territorial battles, because Neptune in Aries can have immigrants displaced or wanting a better life. And so what will you let in? You haven't had as much mass migration effects as we have, most of it because of your 3 oceans. The only place you got to worry is us, mainly. But what we're worrying about with Mexico, you guys may have from us as the next few decades go by. And it won't just be Americans, it'll be everybody coming through, air, land, sea. You also may look at having depletion of resources, not just your country, but all over. And it's going to turn out to be between developing and developed countries, and it can start to pit them against each other. I got a couple slides on that coming up, I think, in Uranus. And so it's going to create deep ethical pondering from recognizing how interrelated we all are, and everything on planet Earth is connected to everything else. Aries is youth. Again, they're just going to have to rise up. I don't think I have to talk about climate change in a lot of detail, but I do want to share something with you. another book, and this is one of your own authors, this is one of your own professors, just ran across this week as I was studying this, and there's the article that I read on the bottom of your screen that synopsis his book, although they're just saying anybody who wants to understand and work with climate change, really consider getting this book. He is one of the people who has created the term polycrisis, which means multiple crises all happening at once. And he says we have 4 of them. First one is our total human energy consumption. We have increased our energy use 6-fold since 1950 due to cheap fossil fuels. We have used 60% of all energy in our existence since 1950. Wrap your head around that one. Earth's energy balance. Our greenhouse gas emissions, we know this, trap more energy coming in, sunlight, than going out. The trapped energy equals 600,000 Hiroshima bombs going off every single day. I read this article 3 times and I'm going, seriously? It's just like, oh my gosh. And our hydrologic system, the cycle of water between the surface, land, and air, that then is creating a supercharging of extreme storms, floods, droughts, wildfires. We know this. But it's also sucking trillions of dollars of wealth out of our economy on a global basis. 3, our human population's total biomass. We quadrupled the number of humans on the planet since 1925. There's a huge shift from the million years that came before. 1/3 of the carbon in our bodies originated from the coal, oil, and natural gas we have burned. We eat the food, etc. We are going to soon become the largest biomass on the planet. The first one is cows, but they're only 5% more than us. I don't know how fast before we overtake them. We humans, we just overtook krill, which is the 3rd largest biomass. That's its own, climate change issue, not decreasing. And 4th is sheep. Then the 4th polycrisis is the connectivity of our human population. Everything goes back and forth all over the world so fast. COVID, anybody? And so what it means as we keep increasing in population, and we're like so homogenous as humans now, no matter where we are, is that pathogens, and not just viruses, but viruses, bacteria, and fungi. And fungi are starting to come into the news as well now, because they are living in warmer and warmer climates easier. And so now things travel across the world in days to weeks. And all that together is just creating huge issues. There's more polycrises, but those are the 4 big ones in his book. Pass forward, immediately cutting greenhouse gas emissions to 0. Can we do it fast enough? He thinks that we need to pump sulfur dioxide crystals into the stratosphere, way, way, way high up, to reflect more sunlight. I put this in here. I don't know about that one. I'm going to have to, I haven't bought the book yet. I'm going to, because I feel I need to read more about that. Travel restrictions, even though they are very politically unpopular, they work. Tax incentives and regulations that encourage companies to diversify our food supplies, our software ecosystems, and our financial instruments. We talked about Pluto and Aquarius, having local, provincial, state, public banks, and using that to take care of ourselves. China's WeChat, that is one software app that does everything, versus breaking up monopolies. But he says the issue, as usual, starts at the top. The entrenched consensus majorities or societal elites, they just don't want to think outside of the box. And until they do, we're going to continue having these catastrophes. And so how intense will it get before they start to recognize and make changes? All right. Now let's look at Neptune's waxing sextiles to Pluto. Excuse me, just a moment. The sun came out with snowflakes. So bear with me. I work in front of a window to hopefully you can see me okay. Let me know if you can't. Pluto Neptune as a planetary pair is the spiritual evolution of humanity. 500-year cycle, last conjunctions were in Gemini. Photography, electricity, telephone, it really took off from those Neptune and Aries inventions. And so we are in process of 49 waxing sextiles. We've had a little bit of a break, but we're going to start up again in 2026 when they both initiate into Aries and Aquarius. We're going to have 13 more waxing sextiles before they move on from each other. This is due to Pluto's elliptical orbit, okay? And so the potential is for religious and spiritual growth to catch up with expanding global consciousness. However, all these changes can also create defensiveness and clashes over beliefs and resources, and those Plutonian power and control issues. We will see the globalization of the planet continue regardless of national policies, our boundaries, beliefs. Mass migrations will continue to increase all over the world, mainly due to, again, our climate change. Remember I said that Neptune rules the immune system? Neptune can have an overall rulership of medicine as well, especially with Uranus, Aquarius 11th, and Pluto into Aquarius. Aquarius rules contagion, disease spread through air, mental contagions, believing the Pied Piper. That's all like-minded group stuff with Aquarius, but physically Aquarius spreading things through the air. And I said before, strengthening our immune systems. Well, with all three of these outer planets, Pluto, Neptune, Uranus, we're just going to see technology around medicine just explode. But it will also create controversies because that technology will outpace ethics. You've had a little bit of your own history with ethics issues, so have we. And so how are we going to address this? How are we going to deal with this? You know, it's going to be part of that coming Aquarian age, 500-year Pluto-Neptune cycle. Waxing sextiles are choices. They are, do we do this or that? They are choices. And decisions made at waxing sextiles carry all the way around the rest of the circle. And so what are we going to do with these human and robot interfaces? Are we going to manipulate genetic traits? You know, are we going to, you know, have the eugenics come along again? All that stuff can go. Now, there's some positives of it because we're going to continue to create machines that can see through our body without having to open it up. Augmented reality, MRIs, CAT scans. We're going to work with 3D printing. We're going to have little handheld machines like we had in Star Wars that goes like this, and then you get a printout of your, disease sensitivities and where your nutritional deficiencies are and what you have to do to, help yourself be healthier. And by the way, I already work with one of those systems, and I have another slide on it here coming up with Uranus. Are they going to put chips in us to keep control of us? But can we also have biometric chips that really help us? We already have that with diabetes. Type 1 diabetes can put little things that pump their insulin up and down as they need it. So there's positive negatives with this as we look at this whole issue of technology just changing every area of life, not just how we have monetary policies, not just social media, not just medicine, but all the areas that I'm just not going into detail with. And there's nothing that won't be affected by technology. And so my father, who's been gone since 2020, non-COVID, he never had a cell phone, and he never learned how to use a computer. And I thought about that the other day, and I go, wow, that type of person just isn't going to exist anymore. My husband and I in our 60s are going, I don't want to learn something new. And I'm going, we don't get any choice, honey. Not unless we want to retire and just go find a deserted island that we can live on and, ignore everything in the modern world. And that might not even be able to happen. So Neptune waxing sextile Pluto, it's just going to bring an interface of spirit, mind, heart, and body connections, negative and positive. It's going to be up to each of us to just choose how we want to get along on the planet. And these 3 in fire and earth signs are in nice sextiles and trines, but they're in fire and air that just stirs things up. We will see how it goes. I decided with Neptune in these aspects, I wanted to put this in. I came across this a while ago, and, my mother raised me on the golden rule. She wasn't super religious. She was more spiritual, but I heard this golden rule, do unto others as you would have them do unto you, my whole life growing up. It was the one sentence I was preached and accepted and took on. I didn't realize it existed in all the other major religions as well. So here's that Neptunian mystical side of all of them. We all have it. So it doesn't have to be us against them. And perhaps in some ways, I just might be preaching to the choir, but I just thought, this is a nice one with the intensity of what we are looking at with these Neptune sextiles to Pluto. And remember, as a planetary pair, it's the evolution of our souls. And it's the evolution of our souls' belief systems. And waxing sextiles here in the modern world, in the context of where we are at right now with the changing of our climate, there really is that potential of us learning and choosing to get along with each other. I have hope with that. Let me give you one side on the polarity. And as all 4 of these outer planets have retrograde cycles, they're far enough from Earth, okay, that from our geocentric perspective, they appear to go retrograde 5 months of the year. And that's almost half the time. That means all 44% of the souls on the planet are born with 1 or all of these 4 outer planets retrograde, which means throwing off all of those conditioning factors. And so, as I said before, the polarity of each of these transits works in tandem throughout the entire time period of the transit, but they also are activated at stationary retrograde direct, and they're activated during these 5-month retrograde cycles. And so that polarity Libra for Neptune and Aries is learning to honor the divine in the other. And I say other broadly, meaning all species. How do I honor it in another person, another country? How do I honor it with the 4-leggeds and the wings? How do I honor it with the planet? And so with Libra, there is a necessity to learn the psychology of listening. Libra is air, but because it's that balance of equality, it's that give and receive. And so we can't just Aries initiate, we have to listen. And it means deeply listening, the psychology of listening here, versus wanting to do all the Arian interrupting and trying to convert and convince someone to our point of view, versus being able to take in another perspective and find where is the compromise, where is the balance with all that. And so, because we're working with Neptune, it also means being able to inwardly listen to our inner voice or our sense of higher power, however we perceive that to be. One of my quotes again that I'm always saying to people is, the relationship we have with ourselves is identical to the relationship we have with source energy. And the relationship we have with source energy is identical to the relationship that we have with ourselves. They are one and the same. It is a 24/7 conversation. And so, especially when Neptune's retrograde, the retrogrades turn us inward. Can we listen? Can we listen to our higher self? Can we listen to source energy speaking directly to us on what we need to release and what we need to initiate through this transit? And if we can do that, then we can reach new levels of equality and fairness in all our relationships, one-on-one with whoever we're interacting with in our life. We can start to do it with groups. We can do it country to country. And we can do it species to species. If you have a love of animals, you know that they have their own communications within themselves and with us. And so it also means that we want to slow down and pace ourselves, when to act and when not to, when to do that Aries initiation and when not to. And that means then with Neptune involved, when to work and when to rest. That comes from that Pisces Virgo polarity. The Virgo work, the Pisces rests. We can take both to distortions, but that Neptune and Aries polarity Libra literally is. How do we balance action and inaction? How do we balance work and rest, or work and play? Now, one of the things that comes with Libra is, as you see on your screen, when to give and when to not give. And when not giving is the higher act of giving. You've heard of enabling, you've heard of neediness, you hear Libra buzzwords, you know, the parent that keeps loaning the adult child more resources and more resources, when the best thing is to stop and say, you're 35, you're having your second Saturn waxing square, enough is enough. That's not giving, that is the greater giving. We all may have that in some area. We all may need to readdress that as we go through. this Neptune in Aries transit. All right, so I'm going to check my time. We've got about 10 minutes here. I'll go through my ending slides. Are there any questions or comments or anything going on? Oh, one more. I forgot one more. Hold on. So, Neptune can involve judgments because religion can create these standards of right, wrong conduct based upon until death us do part, or thou shalt not commit adultery, or whatever. What we have to do when Neptune is retrograde, we can do it through Neptune in Aries too. It would help with Neptune if we release judging and allow for more discerning. In other words, that phrase, walk a mile in another person's moccasins, as we say in the Northern Plains, and you probably me too. This is a very, very important thing because when Neptune's retrograde in general, it's reviewing our beliefs. And Neptune in Aries, I want you to agree with my beliefs. And Neptune retrograde, the Libra polarity says, well, you have to consider my beliefs. When Neptune's retrograde, it is a very heightened time period of awareness and sensitivity. It's like the unconscious, all the outer planets retrograde, unconscious is thrown up into consciousness. And so with Neptune, you know, and that awareness of we are all one, we just become highly attuned to our environment around us. We also become more attuned towards the interconnection, the timelessness that we have with others, with the universe. It increases the ability to reconnect with source however we need to. It's also a time period to be very careful with substances. Neptune rules endocrine system in general, and it rules the pineal gland specifically. And so it gets more activated when Neptune is in its retrograde cycle, even if we're not always consciously aware of it. Neptune retrograde is also a time period in which there is a push to exhaust those separating desires, to honor and respect that process of letting go versus that Neptune Aries holding on. So how do we surrender? How do we let go? What are the desires, the manifestation of those desires that just no longer serve our soul anymore? That retrograde and the Libra polarity relationships, that is a time period to surrender and merge with universal source, especially if we can do it consciously while we're still in this form called our physical body. Okay, now I got through that slide. We will go forward looking at how, as we discussed Uranus, it has its relationships to both Neptune and Pluto, adding on from what we just looked at. One more time. You saw this one. And one more time. You're welcome to adopt my mantra. Spirit of God, Goddess, come through us. Mind of God, Goddess, speak through us. Heart of God, Goddess, love through us. Body of God, Goddess, we are. Again, interrupt me if there's any questions or comments. Here is my slide again with all my little connections. Here's my annual forecast. And for you specifically Canadians, here's the dates and degrees of all of the aspects that you have coming up. And there's a little bit of Neptunian activity here. You have the 3 slides of everything to work through. Okay. Thank you very much. I will see all of you in 65 minutes. I'm back to clouds and big white snowflakes. Enjoy your lunch, everyone. I will see you at 12:15.